Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, and this is my co-host, Jerrika and We are the coaches from Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the episode. Jerrika, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I have an interesting topic for us today, but one thing I wanted to talk about before we get into the topic. So, I don't know, are you a fan of mixed martial arts at all, or UFC or fighting or boxing or any of those combat sports?
I just recently binge watched Kingdom, so now I'm obsessed. I don't know if anyone out there has watched Kingdom. Great show. Anyways, it's a MMA style fighting gym, and now I'm obsessed. But I normally hate watching UFC on TV.
Okay, so you're practically a professional now.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of both.
So the thing that I wanted to talk about that I find really interesting is, and it's not just MMA fighters. I just thought of it because there was a big fight recently, but how they can cut so much water before a fight is insane.
Blows my mind.
There's fighters and there's bodybuilders and physique competitors also who do it, but there's fighters who drop like 20 pounds for a weigh-in, which
in
is
a very short period of time.
It's absolutely absurd. And it got me really thinking because one of the big health monitors that doctors and different professionals use is weight, right? And if somebody has the ability of losing 20 pounds of water for a weigh-in, I mean, how accurate can it be to use our weight as a measure of our health, right?
Right.
Obviously, I think most people listening are familiar with the body mass index. So are you familiar with the basic calculation for a body mass index, like how it's done?
It's what is it? Your weight divided by
your height.
Height. I think it's your height.
And then that's pretty much
nothing else is taken into account. So, yeah, it's just two factors.
What's really interesting about body mass index is if somebody's very muscular, they read as obese or overweight.
Yeah.
So interesting enough, I know that there's insurance companies who actually take somebody's weight into consideration for an insurance rating, like a life insurance rating. So if these fighters have the ability to lose 20 pounds for a weigh-in, like somebody could literally lose 20 pounds for a weigh-in for a life insurance policy, and it's going to reduce their life insurance policy just because they cut water. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
I never thought of it like that.
And these are the kind of things that I think about, but it's just hilarious to me that in today's day and age, that's still such huge health marker. And I guess it is something. I mean, we have to use what's available to us, and our weight is available to us. But you look at some of these professional athletes and football players and fighters, and to put these guys on a scale, like they're specimens of human beings, to put them on a scale and to say that they are obese is mind-blowing.
Yeah. And it's more mind-blowing that, like you said, there's doctors who are still referring, people are still using this as a measurement tool. Like this has been like thrown through the bushes like years ago, but people are still using it, and it's been debunked and everything. But it's still mind-blowing to me.
And I mean, I don't have an issue with using it as one of your data points, but if you know that you're muscular and it's telling you you're obese, well, look at the other factors too, right? Like to me, there's nothing better than progress pictures and tape measurements.
Yes, the two, yeah.
Like they're just not going to lie to you. If your scale's lying to you, your tape measure is not going to over a course of time. In your progress pictures and the way your clothing fits, and more importantly, how you're feeling, right? Do it for how you're feeling. Anyways, that's my rant for today. I got off thinking about that, and I was like, well, it just blows my mind. But topic that I picked for today is intuitive eating.
Intuitive eating, I like it.
So it's something that I've been hearing a lot about lately, and I think it's a cool way that the diet world is going, because I think there's been a lot of shitty routes that the diet world has taken, and I think intuitive eating has a lot of merit to it, in my opinion. But it's certainly challenging. What's your opinion on it?
I personally am an intuitive eater. I have been a tracker for many years, and I think intuitive eating has been the best for myself in terms of just understand kind of the mental cues. Like, am I full,
Mm.
or am I eating to fill this number on my phone tracker because I have to? And so it's, to me, it's I like it because it's allowing me to connect my body a little bit better. So I'm making those cues. Am I full? For me, I'm just kind of respecting myself. It's just, for me, more so mentally, I think I've really enjoyed it, and portion control and things like that. So I like it. I've really been enjoying it. I think it's a challenge, to not overeat or undereat per se, but I think there's benefits to both, to tracking and understanding what portion sizes look. But the ultimate goal, in my opinion, would be to be able to understand when you're full and eat when you're hungry, and those cues.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And so would you say it's fair to say, for people listening to this, if you're brand new to, and when I say brand new, that could also mean that you've been unsuccessful with nutrition in the past. So if you don't have a lot of consistent experience being successful with nutrition, we'll say that you're a beginner for now. Would you say that for people who are listening who are beginners, they should be starting out with some form of tracking, but then ultimately be trying to learn a little bit more about intuitive eating as they're going? Or do you think it's something that people can jump into very easily right away?
I think it depends. The old fitness answer. I think it depends who you are, but I think the benefits of knowing and understanding a bit more about food and portions and how that responds with your body is more beneficial. So some type of tracking and learning and understanding,
Mhm.
I think, can be very beneficial.
Agreed, agreed. And
Yeah.
and you'll often hear people who use something like calorie and macronutrient tracking. They're very successful with it, but it becomes tedious, as we all know. It becomes
Yes.
very tedious to do it forever. So you'll hear them stop doing that and then often fall back and fail. And I think it's really important along your journey of tracking to learn your body cues and listen to your hunger cues and uh, learn how to get to that point of intuitive eating, because it is a really really good for lifestyle for a lot of people. And I think if you build it into your daily habits, it can be something that you can learn to do very very well.
Mhm.
um w- tell us a little bit about how you do it then. So if you're approaching a meal, what does that look like for you?
For me, I'm always picking my protein. And not that I don't track, but I'm still using like my palm. I'm like, okay, my protein's going to be about my palm size, and my carb, I'm just going to grab a fist of carbs, and this is something that we talk about with our coaching clients as well. And I always try to find the fat. So I'm always about hitting my macronutrients. So I'm taking a protein, a carb, and a fat, and I'm building my plate per se. But I'm eyeballing it, right? So if I'm, three quarters in and I'm full, I'm gonna stop eating.
Mm.
And maybe that's not to say that I'm not gonna come back to my protein maybe an hour from now, maybe not, and finish it. But at that time, and I think the big thing is eating with intention and eating slow. And that's something that I
Huge.
really, really struggle with.
It's huge. It's so
It's
so huge.
insane. So I think that's a big thing to take from that, is eating slow, because that will allow the cues to fully hit you. Am I hungry, or am I full? So that's
There's
something that's a struggle.
there's a couple takeaways from there. So I want to make a note so that I circle back to it. But one of the things you mentioned was our hand size portions. So this is a system that Precision Nutrition has come up with, and it's using hand size portions to measure your food. And I think it's so genius because we bring our hands with us everywhere we go.
Hmm.
So it's as simple as your protein is the size of your palm, your fat is the size of your thumb, and your carb is the size of a cupped hand. And obviously, depending on your goals and what you're doing, you have to play around with the quantities of those. But if you can start portioning your meals out with that in mind, so using a thumb-sized portion of oil or a palm-sized portion of chicken breast and a cupped hand of rice. If you can start using that as a reference, it is so much more freeing than measuring everything, right?
Think of, like, not so much now because most of us are stuck in our homes, but think about when you're busy, right? I'm visiting my parents, I'm going to a friend's house. The last thing I want to be doing is bringing my scale everywhere I go. And like you said, my hands are with me. So it's a great tool that I think it's an eye opener for a lot of people. And it could be really, really helpful for sure.
That's a conversation I have with almost every person before they start the program with us, and it's the Fat Loss Forever program. It's how I can get you to the point where you can go to a party or an event and you can eyeball the food and know exactly how much of it you can eat. I don't want anybody to ever not be able to go to an event because they're uncomfortable knowing how much of everything they can eat, or they feel like they need to ask somebody at the party for a scale or a measuring cup. Like, that is so ridiculous to me for general health. If you're trying to become a bodybuilder, a physique competitor, something like that, completely different. I understand. But if your goal is general health, I just hate the whole idea of that. And it's so ridiculous and it's so unsustainable that is one of my main goals for people coming out of Fat Loss Forever, that they can navigate those special events, know how much of everything they can eat to succeed, and not overthink it or overstress it. I think that's such an important lesson.
100%.
So the one point that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to circle back on is eating slowly, because I think this is a huge part of intuitive eating. In my opinion, one of the biggest things that is causing people to eat quickly is distraction. Would you agree with that?
Their phones, yes.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. For everybody listening and not watching, Jerrika just held up her phone for you to see.
Or watching TV while you eat.
TV and phone, for sure.
Yeah.
Huge distraction. And it's been proven time and time again that these technological distractions cause us to eat quicker and less mindfully. And when we do that, we don't enjoy the food. We eat more of the food typically, and we don't appreciate the food.
Yep, exactly. I think another aspect of it as well is to allow yourself to be hungry. Hunger is not a bad thing, right? And I think that sometimes, we're on a clock, like for some reason we have to eat at, I don't know, 8 or 9, 12, and 4. Like, we have to eat these specific time that the world told us that we have to eat at. But when I feel hungry and I'm genuinely hungry, well, I'm going to eat. Right. And I'm listening to those cues. And I think that's a really, really important part of it as well.
And a lot of people are going to argue that, well, we've been doing this a long time, so it's easier for us. And I would say there is some truth to that. The more you do this, the easier it becomes. Yep. And that's why I circle back to, at first, you probably should be following a program. You probably should be tracking, because it is challenging at first. I won't disagree with that. But that's one of the huge factors with becoming in tune with your body, because often we eat because we're bored. We eat because we're stressed. We eat because we're angry. We eat because we're sad. We eat because there's food present. And it's really it is really freeing to start to understand when your body actually needs to eat. I mean, a simple test that I often get people to do when they've got a craving or they feel like they're hungry is I tell them to have a glass of water, first of all, because there's a good chance you're just thirsty.
Yes. Very
and then go do something for a couple minutes. Like, literally, I'll have people make a list of 10-minute tasks. So it could be anything for going for a 10-minute walk or tidying up a bathroom or doing the dishes. A small list of things you could accomplish in 10 minutes, sending an email, making a phone call, and then revisit that hunger 10 minutes later after you've had water and you've had some time to clear your mind and think about it. Is that something that you have applied in the past?
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because that's something I forgot about. The water is the first thing that I always do first thing in the morning and first thing whenever I experience a hunger cue. And the 10-minute tasks, yeah, that is a great idea, and something that I think we can incorporate for sure.
I think if your goal, and I think most people listening to this, your goal is weight loss or fat loss. I think if that is your goal, you need to get a little bit comfortable with the feeling of hunger too.
Yep.
It's something that we often don't let ourselves experience. And like Jerrika said earlier, it's not a bad thing to feel hungry. Feeling hungry doesn't mean you have to eat right away. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just
Um,
listening to those cues.
Listening to the cues. So one thing that I like for intuitive eating is to use a scale. So a scale of 1 to 10. Say 1 is hungrier than you've ever been. You're about to pass out. 10, you're bloated to the point you think you're gonna throw up. Um, do you ever use a scale like this for yourself, or have you used it with clients in the past?
Yeah, so I want you to think, like, if what happens when you get to a 10? Are you more likely, if you're starving to get to it, if you let yourself get to a 10, are you more likely to overeat when you sit down and eat?
Did we flip our scale around? So you're saying a 10 is really hungry?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I
I'm
was
so
going the other way.
sorry.
That's okay. It's not a big deal. I
Clearly.
mean, the same principle applies.
Yeah, so if you are starving, right, you're more likely to overeat.
100%.
So I think it's finding that hunger, that middle ground, right? I'm hungry, but I'm not like famished, because that's when we don't slow down. We eat too quickly, right? We're distracted and we just try to get it in as quickly as possible.
So what I'll often instruct people to do is try to stay in like the 3 to 7 range.
Hmm.
So if you mark off all of these points on a hunger scale, uh, don't allow yourself to get past that 3. So that 3 is like, you're like, okay, I'm hungry. If I go any further, I'm going to be really freaking hungry and I'm going to start grabbing anything in sight. Don't let yourself get to that. So once that hunger starts to get serious, it's time to put something in. And you can stop it before that. You could start eating at a 4, you could start eating at a 5, but don't let yourself get higher than that 7, right? If you can always stay in that 3 to 7, so regardless of where you start, whether it's 3, 4, 5, or 6, try to just take yourself to the 7. And I'll even say occasionally let yourself go to the 8. And the 8's where you're like, I'm full. I know I shouldn't eat anymore. At 9, you're starting to feel I'm uncomfortable now. At 10, you're disgusted. You're unbuckling your belt.
Yeah.
Uh, Let yourself get to that 8 occasionally. That's fine to get to the okay, I'm full. My body's full. My mind might want a little bit more, but my body's certainly full. Or that 7, and that's that. If you can learn to stop at that, it might mean you circle back to a meal a little bit sooner afterwards, but it's going to allow you to get it's going to allow you to make room for the more important nutrients, certainly.
Hmm. Yep, and I like that.
um, One really interesting coaching technique is with eating slowly. When we force ourselves to eat slowly, we force ourselves to eat undistracted. We don't often overeat because it allows our body cues long enough to tell us, okay, guy, I'm full now. You don't have to put the rest of that cheeseburger in. I'm good now. But on the flip side, if your goal is to gain weight, if you do have a hard time gaining weight, I would tell you the opposite. Try to eat
Yep.
faster.
Get it in, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Like eat fast enough that your body doesn't have enough time to recognize it's full. And it's that's a really, really simple technique. If you're trying to lose weight, eat slow. If you're trying to gain weight, eat
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. um that's a pretty good covering of intuitive eating. I mean, I know it's such an in-depth topic. If anybody ever wants to talk about it more, feel free to shoot me a message. I'd love to have that chat with you.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of takeaways there for people who are new to this and people who are trying to learn a bit more about intuitive eating.
It's definitely not easy, and it definitely takes time. And it might be that half your day is intuitive, half your day is kind of tracking, but you will get there. And for sure, ask us any questions along the way.
Yeah, and like we said a couple times, try to start building it into whatever plan you're doing now. If you're tracking your macros now, or you're doing Weight Watchers or whatever you're doing right now, try to build in a few of these habits. Ask yourself a few times throughout the day, where am I on that 1 to 10 scale, right? If you're in the 3 to 7 range, it's okay to talk yourself back up to a 7. If you're at a 2, then you waited a little too long to eat. And I think that's something that you can start becoming aware of at any point.
Yep. And then take a glass of water, drink that glass, right? Spend a couple minutes doing something and then revisit those thoughts. And that's a big takeaway as well.
Eating undistracted, thinking about the food you're putting in your mouth. What does it taste like?
Hmm.
Even going as far as, where did it come from? How did this food, like, how was this food created?
Appreciating it. Yeah.
Appreciate the food, the flavors of the food. Like, you can get so much more out of a meal when you eat undistracted and slowly. There's just so many benefits to it, and that's my challenge for you today. If you haven't tried this, shut the TV off, put the phone in a different room,
Hmm.
and really take some time to appreciate your food. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to chew your food 3,000 times, but take a couple extra minutes and enjoy it, and really think about the food you're eating.
Awesome.
If you guys took some value out of this episode today, and you think you know somebody who also could, it would be awesome if you could share it in your Instagram story. I know you can share this directly from whatever device you're listening to this on, straight to your Instagram story. Tag us in it. Tag some friends you think would love to hear it. Rate it, review it. Let us know what you think of it. We'd love to hear your feedback. And like always, if you have any topics you'd like to hear from us in the future, make sure you reach out and let us know, because we're completely open to talking about different topics, and we're doing this for you guys anyway. So if there's something you need help on, you want to hear, let us know. But most of all, thank you for listening. We appreciate it and hope you enjoyed the episode.